And we're live. It's Bradley J. It's the J-Cast for Sunday, and we have Steve Kilroy here. Steve Kilroy's a drummer he has been in a million bands, and we'll get to what he's doing now. Steve, hi.
Hello, Bradley.
How
Hello,
are you?
everybody else.
Steve's
Nice
name
to see everybody.
Steve's name pops up in lots of our conversations because he's been included in a lot of my experiences, and also he does check in to other broadcasts with comments, and I acknowledge him. So this is the Steve Kilroy that I'm talking about when I talk about him, and he comes to us live from Holland, right?
Yes, what's technically Friesland,
so
the Netherlands.
What's the difference between the Netherlands and Holland? Same thing.
Well, Holland's sort of in the middle. Friesland is up north. What's down south? What's it called down south?
Okay.
South of Holland. Anyway,
so
there's three parts. Holland's sort of in the middle.
The Netherlands. The Netherlands are three parts. Holland's in the middle. Okay.
Yeah.
And Friesland is up north where it's cold.
I'm way up the tippity top. Where the weather's nice.
Near Hamburg, 3 hours from Hamburg, Germany.
Yep.
And you are, well, the last time I saw you, you were gigging with Nirvana, your Nirvana tribute band. That's spelled
luckily, NERVA. Luckily, we snuck in one little tour here. We got to do a really nice festival in Barcelona. Did a gig in Germany, did a gig in Belgium, did one in Holland up here in the Netherlands.
So we're going to explore the life and adventures and challenges of a drummer who's really stuck with it and has been living the dream off and on for a long time. Yes. I suppose it'll be fun to go back for WBCN people to talk about how I met you, and it was in the 80s, right? Wasn't it?
I don't know. I think we met in 91.
Do you remember when we actually met?
I think it was about 90, 91 was when I was playing with that Restless Souls band. And I had a spinal injury and was bored, and my friend Bob was working the listener line. And I said, well,
the BCN list.
How do I do that? So he gave me someone's number, and I just, came in to answer phones and smoke cigarettes and meet rock stars. There was nothing. I was just bored at the time because of my spinal injury. I couldn't do much else. So
how'd you get a spinal injury?
I was at work, and I used to deliver packages, and someone handed me a huge heavy box, and it cracked one of my vertebrae. I didn't need surgery or anything, but it was enough to lay me up for 6 months or so.
Wow. And so then you became a listener line guy, and we hit it off, and you became producer, whatever that is. But you would get record. Did we still have records at the time? We did, right?
Yeah, there was still, there was CDs mostly, but there was still vinyl because you still had your pick every hour for one or two songs or something like that. And I would set up the commercials for you, and we would talk about, if a guest was coming in, we would talk about questions, and I would do some research as much as I could without internet.
Yeah, no internet, man. Like, what did we do? How did you find stuff out? I don't know.
Touring was also quite fun without the internet and cell phones.
Right. Okay. So then we hung out quite a bit. You were friends with Jason Steinberg, who is a promotions guy at WBCN, and we were both Mustang people. You bought a Mustang in California, drove it back with Jason, and I also had a Mustang. And I guess that was the 90s. And
that was a lot of fun.
We did and then we would party after the show, and Tammy Heidi would hang around with us. And
we used to all just party all night. Like there was nothing else.
Like actually all night, like the sun came up.
Yes. Doing mushrooms and whatever else.
And then
well, that was me personally.
The next thing I remember, I mean, there's a lot of time that passed between then and this next thing, but we were at the tattoo convention in
like 08, I think.
The Cyclorama. 08?
Yeah, I think it was around 08, yeah.
Wow.
Best of my recollection.
And I was learning Ableton Live and starting to do mashups because Jeff Hudson of Jeff and Jane. We were in Jeff.
That's the one thing I forgot to put in my little point in my bullet point sheet was, the one Jeff and Jane gig I did. which is
You
pretty.
did only
I
one?
love that. I think so. Maybe it was more than one, but I know I did
You
the
did one
one
at
where
TT's, I know.
yeah, where I was in a stupid outfit on a
Oh, you
dare.
sure it was just the one? Yeah, just to be fun.
Yeah.
You wore a dress and pigtails, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Which was fun. So did Frank Zappa. So
It was a mini dress, to be
but nobody
more
batted an
accurate.
eye, did they? Nobody
No, no
blinked.
one said anything.
That was
I remember Jeff's face. It just looked
right.
okay. There we go.
So Pete Lineback says hi. Pete was in a band with you,
Hey,
right?
Pete Lineback. Yeah, he was in the Restless Souls. We actually did a reunion show last year at the Regent Theater, which is where Chachi's going to be.
Right.
We had planned that before the COVID hit, and the theater didn't want to do it. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They were going to lose a lot of money, so we made it so that it was worthwhile for them to do it, and we got a good 10 camera shoot and some audio out of the deal. But we did it anyway, just for the sake of doing it, just doing it in the middle of all that crap, because it was a tough year for everybody in the industry, right? I mean, so we
Right.
figured, all right, we'll give these guys a night's work at the Regent Theater, and we got we got something out of it as well. Plus, it was great to see Pete as well back again, because he's an awesome guy, Pete.
So that's right. You were involved with the Jeff and Jane Hudson kind of, I don't know what you call them, art rock band, like kind of
Yeah,
New York,
new
Boston,
wave,
new wave, exactly. And I was with them for a while.
Yeah,
And
that was your guitar playing debut gig, and they were, I know that you have those feelings about it, but you learned your parts, and it was
I did
fine.
my
It was
parts,
good.
right? I did
It's
my
great. You got
job.
to get,
I showed up, I practiced, and I did the thing
of
I was
course.
supposed to do. I did. And
Yeah, that's all you got to do.
Did it
Yeah, half the
fine.
rock stars up there don't know what they're doing anyway.
All right.
Make
So
some noise.
then this is interesting, folks. This next part, I think. Jeff actually was Jeff Hudson who turned me on to this program, Ableton Live, which became possible because there was enough computing power at that point, and some geniuses in Berlin came up with a software that could change. You could take a sample and change the beat of it. You could change the the tempo, without changing the pitch. So you could speed it up, and it remained at the same pitch, which meant you could mix songs together or chunks of songs together that you just couldn't before. And you could do mashups. That's how the mashups were born. And since I was kind of a club DJ and I was really interested in that, I used to do mashups at WBCN's New Year's broadcasts and stuff. And at this tattoo convention, Steve said, "Hey, why don't we do this? Why don't you do that live and I'll play drums along with it?" And he was insistent. And so we rehearsed, and we were
I loved it. And
pretty,
and don't downplay it either. You also had your original material, which we incorporated in there. And Bradley, you write good songs. Don't
thank you.
give yourself some credit.
And you had me doing all kinds of stuff. I had a little keyboard, I play that, had a little guitar, play that, had a kick drum.
Yeah, you were like a one-man orchestra as well as the mashups. It was great.
Kick drum and vocals. So I was doing a lot of stuff. And it actually was super fun. As you know, I like the rehearsals just as much as the gigs, because just performing.
It was good, man. I'm sorry. The mashups that you did, and you did them a lot on BCN too. Before, I can't remember the years that you were doing before that, but you were sort of ahead of the curve on that. People didn't really understand, I don't think, what you were doing, but it was cool. It was like industrial, like club music. You could just go on. It would go on for like 45 minutes to an hour, just like the longest jam. It was just cool.
Yeah, a lot of it was heavy. It was fun to mix the heavy stuff with.
And I loved playing drums to it too. All the tribal stuff with the mallets. It's just cool. It was fun.
And so it was pretty 9 Inch Nails, Trent Reznor centric, if you wanted to think of the general vibe. Other stuff would be mixed in, but that was
weird and awesome.
That was, and we have videos of it. A lot of the videos we can't show now because they're so politically incorrect.
Yes. How boring.
I know, absolutely boring. It's such a bummer. There's no fun. There's no fun anymore.
Yeah, it'll come
I can
around
only
again.
send them to people I know get it. I don't. If I put them in public, it would be, "Oh no, you're exploiting women or whatever."
Yes, exactly.
So Nancy says, "Hey, what's up?"
Hello.
And so that evolved into a much more complicated thing with original music, and then the we got Dave Eve, your accomplice in your bands,
Yes,
to be involved, who's just, so changed everything. He's so good at
Dave's
gu-
tremendous.
guitar and mastering things and mixing
Yeah,
things.
he's just an all-around talent.
He builds his own boxes, his
Pedals.
own pedals and
Yeah,
stuff. And he's currently with you when you do your Nirvana thing still, right?
yeah, and the Perfect Tool, the Tool tribute. And we also have a new original project called Gravity Wave, which we're working with a singer in Rotterdam. We have a few tracks recorded already. I'm always doing something original with, I did the recent project with my Swedish boys called Impetus Vibe, which is members of God's Little Joke and another guitarist from Sweden. And we just finished up an album. So we're releasing that like an EP at a time.
So to finish up the Thunder Brothers things, we did get to gig at the Paradise, and Billy Budd at the Paradise said he liked us, and we did all the major clubs in Boston,
Yep.
including Middle East Downstairs with My Life with the Thrill Kill
Yeah,
Cal,
that
and
was wicked.
with Dez's Bent Men,
Yeah.
which is
We did the Hemp Fest 3 times.
the Hemp Fest.
Played in front of the biggest crowds ever. Awesome.
Hemp Fest 3 times, and we did it. We got up on stage, kept together, and had a hula hoop. We had dancers
and the gig in Holland, of course. That one gig.
Hoop artists, and then because of Steve's gung ho-ness and drive, he was the driving force behind getting a gig in Holland, which was at a festival in southern Holland.
Yes.
They shut down the streets, and we did it. The fact is, we just did it. And
it was in
Helmand, that's right. And we had a dancer come with us, Victoria, who's good sport. We said, "You want to go to Holland and be a dancer?" Yep.
She was a good sport about it.
She just did it.
Yeah.
and I bet that's probably her best memory of her life,
Yeah.
don't you think? It's
I
pretty
don't know.
great.
I don't know Victoria anymore, but
Anyway, so then, that's only one of the many things that you've been involved in. And there's the Nirvana tribute and the Tool tribute. And you early on got hooked up with Europe and these booking agents and all that really helped power the Europe touring thing that you do.
Yeah, and the next year is going to be actually probably one of our, providing they don't keep locking down over here. We just got word for the Perfect Tool of a tour in June with I can't even announce it yet. We're playing one of the biggest festivals in Europe in June. And this is going to be unbelievable. So things have always been going well, and COVID slowed it down a little bit, but we got signed. All my tributes got signed to Napalm Events, which is part of Napalm Records in Austria, and they book everywhere from Russia to the Eastern Bloc to to all of the UK, and so they're taking us all over the place next year.
So that's big, man. Where a lot of people just kind of do it when they're a kid, they get married and they don't do it anymore. You continue to do it through everything, thick and thin. Why do you suppose that you continued and they don't? Are you just more into it?
Anyone can do it if they're into it. I mean, I just love it to death. I can't explain. For me, being on stage is why I push on. I mean, that gig that we just had in Barcelona was just unbelievable. It was in an old studio called venue called the Apollo with 1 L. Just an old theater, just packed full of people. I mean, just you can't really beat that. It's better than drugs, that's for sure.
And the Perfect Tool is a Tool Perfect Circle tribute band, and
just
Nirvana
Tool now, but
and Nirvana is the big one for you, or
they're both equal. It just depends on which country. Perfect Tool certainly is I think a bigger marquee in this part of Europe, and we can, like, for instance, the next festival we play is going to be in front of 8,000 to 10,000 people or something. It's going to be pretty big, and yeah, people go for it. So they like the tributes. I don't. That's just something that I like to do because it takes us around to different places and we get paid for it. And I love my original projects more, but the opportunities to tour and to make money are few and far between. I did one last year. Jump the Falls, is the band I'm signed with to Pavement Entertainment, which you can look that up yourself. But we did a tour just before the COVID lockdown. We did a small U.S. tour, and that's more, rewarding for me to go do original stuff. But it's costly, and it's hard to get all the people together to do it and to accept the fact that you're not going to make a lot of money if you just want to do the whole grind thing. So the tribute thing is fun, and it makes a decent amount of money. So that's why I keep doing that.
And one thing that's important to note is that you have to be a real organizer to do all this international stuff, because the people in your band are from everywhere. And then when you lose it's hard to find a bass player for Tool because it's so hard. So
exactly,
your bass player might be from
our bass player is from
Atlanta, or Poland. You have people from other countries as well. You kind of have to weave that all together, right? That's you that does that.
Yeah. We also do a Chris Cornell tribute, which we've only done once, but I found this singer in Sao Paulo, Brazil, this guy Tiago Marsh, who's just unfreaking believable singer. And I just saw him online once, and I'm like, hey man, do you want to go do a thing? And he's like, yeah. So him and his bass player buddy palled up and came over, and we did one short run. And it's fun for me to get together with those kind of people, and that just to have that sort of exchange. And people, if they want to do it, they'll make it happen. They'll make their own schedules work around if you have a tour booked. So it's not really that big a deal.
All right.
And because I'm self-employed, I make my own rules.
So the most recent thing you did was Barcelona, Big Gig in Barcelona. You sent me a little video clip of that. Tell me about that. Not only the venue, but what it was like with all those folks.
First of all, don't ever fly Ryanair.
Okay, I'm making
any of the stories of Ryanair. It's like it's a bus, and if you have no equipment, if you're just a person who wants to go somewhere, it's good, it's cheap, but they're just a pain in the ass. But and especially these days with COVID and you have to have your QR codes, and American QR codes don't work, so you have to show your vaccine passport, and it's a little bit of a hassle, but you can get through it. But when we got to Barcelona, they really took care of us really well. And a lot of the times when they do that, when they fly you in to do one theater show or whatever, they usually treat you really well. They put you in a nice hotel, you get a nice meal somewhere, and the experience is usually, you give them a list of equipment that you want, and it usually works out nice. And this was one of those gigs. It was just one of those dream gigs.
Everything worked out well, and there were I don't know how many people. 8,000?
Yes, no.
5,000?
No,
3,000?
No, in that club it was probably 400, but it looked like a lot more.
Oh, all right. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's a good amount of people for that room. So it was a full house. It's good.
So it's interesting that Nirvana really still commands so much interest, right?
Sure. They're a marquee band. They're one of the big bands, and our singer is from New York. His name is Joey. He had been doing it for years before I met him. He joined up with us in 2016. He's a lefty. He just sounds just like him, and he's just awesome. He's awesome, and we have a good time. And Nirvana music is great music, so it's a lot of fun to play.
Okay, and we were gonna make sure we included some road stories, because you're on the road a lot, and when you're on the road, stories happen. So we have four brief stories. I guess let's start domestically with the time you had a big old van, and you'd made plans to record something in New York, but you were down south in Florida, maybe.
Yeah,
and you had to drive up in a giant storm.
Yeah, I lived in Florida briefly, which was in and of itself a giant life mistake. But
I remember
when you're in your early 20s, you can make some giant life errors. So I was shacked up with this chick down there. Anyway, that's another story. But Chaotic Past is on Ace of Hearts Records.
The band was Chaotic Past.
Yeah, and Ace of Hearts, I didn't really realize what an honor it was to be on such a label. that had such influence. I was a little bit clueless back then as to the magnitude of that, but we had a recording session booked in New York, a really high-end studio, and I was in Florida, and the blizzard of the century was coming. This was 1996, the winter of '96, and so I made my way out. I had a '78 Ford van with a 351 Mustang engine in it, like an A-Team style van. It was awesome, but it wasn't built for snow. It had slicks on it. And so I thought I was just going to beat the storm, and I was wrong.
It had
So I left.
slicks. It had complete slicks on it.
Well, not slicks, but it had street tires and
Florida tires, not all season tires, just regular.
No, it had stupid fat tires, but they weren't snow tires. And anyway, it started snowing in Georgia, so I had to drive through like 800 miles of blizzard weather up the coast. And this was, as we mentioned, the days before cell phones and before the internet. So when my van broke down when I was in Virginia, I just had to sort of wait by the side of the road. And luckily, a flatbed wrecker came by and put my van on the back and dropped me off at a hotel. And I had to rely on the niceness of some people at the motel to help me fix my van and get me on my way. And I had no money, and I had to get money wired to me on the wire back then on Western Union. So I was like on the payphone to my then manager, and he put some money on the wire. And then I had to find a place that was open after the blizzard, which down there was, I don't know if you remember, if you had to have money wired to you on Western Union, you had to go to a payphone and call a number, and then it would tell you where the nearest Western Union was. And then you had to look on your map, and you had a map book. So you had to look on your map book and find that place. And I just kept going. I went to like 3 or 4 different places. They were all closed because of the blizzard. And eventually, I pulled off the highway. I was out of gas. I pulled into a gas station, and that gas station had a Western Union in it.
Just by accident?
By accident. I went to the cell phone, the payphone, and I called, and it gave me the address, and I looked around, and I was in the place. And so, even though the guy at the gas station was a total dick and didn't want to give me the money, I eventually got the money out of him, and then made my way to New York and made the Chaotic Past record.
And then there's by the way, Rick Hart, I see him once in a while around the South End.
I still speak with him,
sneaks around,
chat with him.
Yeah.
I love Rick. We had a lot of fun times together.
So then there was the time in Turkey. You've done gigs in cool and what are some of the more remote areas you've done gigs in?
Well, Turkey was certainly the most exotic place I had been. And when we were going there, all we had was 2 names and 2 telephone numbers of people who were going to meet us at the airport. And these are your contacts. They'll meet you, and then they'll tell you what to do. And at the time, and this wasn't even that long ago, I think this was 2012 or something like that, I was like, well, I'd feel better if we had some printed itinerary with, some official looking stuff. No, they don't do it that way. So like, okay. And so we showed up, and there was 2 different guys. Only one of them spoke broken English. And Dave, who has all the luck, someone walked off with his bag.
He's your guitar player.
Davey is the bass player for this, for the Nirvana thing. So someone walked off with his bag, and he was trying to deal with the people at the airport who also didn't. We weren't at the main Istanbul airport. We were on outskirts on a smaller airport, and then we had to get in this car with these strangers and drive like 3 hours into the night towards the Bulgarian border with a guy who was driving 100 miles an hour the entire way. I'm not even joking. And he was bombing, and he had one leg up. He was smoking a cigarette, and he had a remote for his stereo. So he's driving like 100 miles an hour with his leg, smoking a butt. And we're all crammed. There's 5 of us crammed into a car with all the gear and all the luggage. Dave's in his happy place because he's got nothing. He's got no luggage. He's got no strings, no effects pedals. And we ended up, we got to this hotel in Bulgaria, on the border of Bulgaria. We had to give them our passports, and everyone was looking at us. It was a very sketchy place, and they looked at us like we were very shady, and
It's
Eventually,
amazing that it actually, but it all, you didn't crash, and they didn't steal your passport, and the gig happened, and
yeah, the gig happens. The people were super nice, and they rounded up some pedals for Dave and some strings, and we, of course, we bought him. We went shopping the next day and bought him some. He bought himself some clothes and some socks and stuff like that. And his bag did come to the town. It did make it, and yeah, that was a crazy experience. And then each time we had to go, we played in 5 different places in Turkey. So each time we got to a place, they would say, "All right, here's your next contacts. You go to the airport. You'll have tickets waiting." So we never had printed itinerary or printed tickets. We just had to show up at the airport and hope they had our tickets, and then show up to another place, hope that people were there to pick us up, and the whole thing went like that. And somehow we made it through. And the last gig was in Istanbul. It was amazing. You've been to Istanbul. Istanbul's an amazing place. Club was sold out. I met some dude from Rhode Island was there, and it was it's just amazing. It's amazing. Well, Istanbul itself is an amazing place.
so it could have ended at any moment along that crazy chain.
It could have gone
very sketchy,
really wrong.
Things.
It could have gone really wrong. Yes.
So
There's military, as you know, there's military all over the place there, and walking out onto Tascombe Square, and where there's always protests and riots. So we walked out onto the street one day, and I turned to my right, and there's all the riot police with a tank to my right, and all the rioters to my left. I was like, all right, we'll just walk back, walk back the way we came.
And there's always dealing with locals, I guess, especially in the United States. You hear these stories about people getting in bar fights in Texas and all. And you didn't get in a bar fight in Texas, but you did have some events that had conflict around the edges of them. There was one in Atlanta.
Yeah, I was in Atlanta with Chaotic Past. We were playing the House of Blues, opening for Deep Purple, which was, we thought was going to be the best gig ever. And we had just loaded in our gear, and our guitarist was out in the back moving the truck around, and he backed into a pickup truck, and there was a bunch of gangbang style guys in the back partying, and then they were, it was almost game on for them, and we had to cough up some money for them to go away. So
was there any damage to their vehicle or anything?
Like a small dent or something. And I was thinking they're gonna want like $1,000 or something, and they're like, just give us $50. So my guitarist went to our manager, who happened to just show up, and so he gave us the $50, and then they went on their way. But that's sort of thing.
And then there was out back of the Rat. You have a Rat story.
Yeah, that was fun too. That was with Skin Game. I don't know if you remember Skin Game. That was like an industrial kind of gothy band from Boston, which was a great band. And we had just finished a gig, and we were all hanging out in the back. All of our equipment was on the ground. We were getting ready to load the van, and one of our friends had passed out drunk, and so the rest of the band sort of gathered her up and were taking her inside to take care of her. And so I was left outside alone, and there was just a bunch of thugs or whatever breaking bottles off in the distance, and they came over to the van and started smashing my van up, smashing the windows and the mirrors and stuff. And I was alone, so I had a hammer in the back of my van, and I just grabbed the hammer, and I just stood there in this, surrounded by my equipment, and just watched as they sort of circled me. And I just stood there with the hammer, and luckily no one came for me, because I really had no choice at that point.
Oh, that would have been a bummer.
Luckily, I've escaped getting my ass kicked on the road so far. Knock on wood.
Yeah, and
there's usually a diplomatic solution, but not always.
So up till now, you have escaped COVID, and which is surprising, because you've had to be on the road a lot and traveling a lot. And
yes, and plus because I was married here last year, and I have a business back home, so I have had no choice but to travel every 2 months at minimum. Sometimes that's a little bit longer, sometimes a little shorter, but I've made at least half a dozen journeys back and forth. And I always knew the risks, and I was as careful as I could be. And on this last tour, it got me. And I think luckily, probably because I'm vaxxed, it wasn't so severe.
And right now, folks, you're looking at a dude with COVID. He's got it right now.
Well, I'm on the tail end of it. Monday is my last day of quarantine. And yeah, except for like I said, except for the loss of taste and smell, it wasn't any more severe than like a head cold.
So you're
And
figuring that the vaccination makes it
I think so.
milder. Okay.
Yeah, like I said, my last flu was about 10 times worse than this. And I'm not saying don't be cautious of it because it affects different people different ways. But yeah,
But you did,
luckily,
and I think the note is that you had two negative tests. You had sniffles, you got
yes,
tested, then you got tested again
yes,
with a home test first, then probably what was a rapid antigen test at a facility,
exactly.
and
They
then
both came up negative, and I know I had it. So you can't always go by the test unless it's a PCR test. That's the only way you can really tell.
and you got
And
the PCR.
I wouldn't have even thought of it if after this, because I had a show on that Thursday and I didn't know that I had it. But after that show, I felt kind of rough. I was coughing a lot that night, and I thought, kind of rough. I didn't feel like I was dying though. I just felt like I had a bad cold.
Right.
And then when I got back to home here in Friesland, I scheduled the tests, and uh, yeah, so it turned out positive, which is unfortunate. But now I have the vaccine and I have the antibodies, so hopefully now I'm bulletproof, at least mostly. But you
Yeah.
can still get it. So if you've been vaxxed, don't let your guard down. If you're in a crowded place, wear your mask. If you're not feeling well, don't go out.
Yeah.
And
The
if you have to go
vaccines.
out, wear your stupid mask. Don't infect other people.
By the way, I have to figure out. It looks like we're going to be with this thing for a long time. I have to
Yes.
figure out the most comfortable mask that looks cool. For one thing, I hate it around my ears. So there's
Yes.
that. I sewed buttons onto my hat, and so I hook it on the buttons. That's a lot better. But if you have a beard, you put it on your face, it itches your mustache.
There's different philosophies behind this, though. You got to remember, though, Bradley, because the problem with reusable ones is if it does get on you, if someone coughs and it gets on you, you're not just going to throw it away. So
right.
I really think that the disposable ones are the best ones, because then once you're done with your situation, you just throw it away.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you might still have it on your mask, and you could, you know what I mean? So
yeah, and plus you're touching it all the time. It gets kind of
yes.
You want to like. One thing I hate is you go to Dunkin' Donuts. You remember Dunkin' Donuts?
They have it over here now, sadly. Sorry to say.
And you make your order, and they're like picking at their face, right? They're picking at the face, handling money, picking it. Yeah, what can I do for you? Don't touch your mask unless you have to. But if your nose starts to itch because of it, you kind of it's.
Well, like I said, Bradley, you can take all the precautions you want, and you can be as careful as you want. I was as careful. I wasn't paranoid about it, but I was careful and I was diligent. But one tiny microscopic speck is all it takes, and then that's that.
Yeah.
So you do your best, and like I said, I'm already all through it, and it wasn't so bad for me.
Good.
So
musically speaking, you got this big gig or tour coming up in June, right? This big festival.
Yeah, and there's going to be another one in the spring with Nirvana, and Jump the Falls. We also take other tours into consideration over here because we get solicited tours by the label. They send us tour offers from different bands, so there's a likelihood that we're going to be doing stuff with that. Yeah, I hope to be as busy as possible in 2022.
You may not have, what you answer here might be obvious, maybe not. Maybe we'll get something I didn't expect. But here's a guy you've made a life, not necessarily a living, but a life out of your music and your drumming.
Mm-hmm. I could have made a living.
What kind of
chose not to?
Do you have any advice for people? Like maybe there's no advice, because if you love it, you're going to do it automatically, and if you don't love it, you're going to stop automatically.
Right. Well, I mean, I have a lot of very really amazing pro musician friends who do it for work, and I can't say that the opportunities that I've had. I don't do it for money, because that would take the joy away from me. And personally, it would make me feel kind of stale about it. So, like I said, I could make a living at playing music, but I don't want to do things that I don't want to do. So I'm not going to go join, an 80s cover band or some other working band because I want to make money, because I wouldn't enjoy it. So I do it personally for the joy of it, for the love of it. And when I'm on stage, it's because I want to be there.
Right. You guys do get paid, but basically, you're not doing it for the money. That
But
money goes to expenses and to put back in the band.
When I went on tour with Jump the Fall last year, I lost, I don't know, countless thousands of dollars. I mean, every time I'm away from work, I lose countless monies. And I'm willing to put the money in if it's something I believe in.
Yeah. Now, we didn't talk about what you do for money. Steve is a high end piano refinisher. And
That's one thing I can't escape. Since I've been here, I've only been here a few weeks, and the work just keeps piling in. And I don't have a website, I don't advertise, and it's just one of those things that I've done for so long. I have a reputation for it.
Yeah,
and it's something I will continue to do because it makes me enough money where it allows me certain freedoms. But it's
is your business based here only, or have you managed to get work?
It is based there only.
Over there.
I'm starting a new business here. I'm in the process of starting a new business where I make snare drums from bronze, bell bronze. It's like a really niche thing that's happened in the last couple of years in the drum industry.
Wow.
So I'm starting that up here. I'm hoping that will start to bridge the gap. But when I go home, I'm just slammed with pianos, with piles.
I think you're slammed because of COVID, because these universities, when everybody went home, I bet they looked around and said, all right, maybe we can patch up some dorms, and those pianos, let's get those done now while everybody's at home. You think
it was actually a half and half deal? I mean, Harvard, I've told you I worked for Harvard for 20 years plus, and they just have 200 pianos roughly on the campus. They're not even a music school, but they have a lot of pianos, and so they have a budget, and that didn't really get affected that much. But at a school like North Bennett Street School, which is a piano rebuilding school, they used to do refinishing as part of their curriculum, and they don't anymore. So I get all their refinishing work, and it stopped last year because they were out of session. So I haven't had any work from North Bennett in the last year and a half, but I anticipate that will pick up again at some point because they're starting sessions again.
Hey, where can people see the work you do on the pianos? Because it's spectacular. You must have documented the
well, you can go to my Facebook page and look at my photo albums and find pictures of my restoration work, and you can also just search for artisan piano restoration. I have a Facebook page.
Artisan piano restoration. It's hard work.
It's awful work. I wish someone else could do it.
What?
I would gladly pay someone to do it if I could find someone,
but they don't. Right. And you really can't outsource it because it's very specific skills that you can't.
Well, people are hiring me for me to do the work. So it's people don't want other people doing the work if they hire me to do it. Or my clients are very specific that they want me to do the work.
Right. When I get an operation, I go to a good doctor. I don't want that doctor to farm it out to some student to
here's Bob. Operation. He's gonna do
this is Jimmy.
He's gonna open you up. He's all right.
18. Yeah. So that's great.
Yeah, that is what it is.
It's fun to see you in such a good, other than the COVID, in such a good place, physically, mentally, with your craft.
I'm in the best place of my life, to be honest.
Your drumming and all, you can tell you do have a certain peace. That emanates peace.
I was quite edgy as I was. When you remember when I was young, I was quite angry and edgy. I sort of lost some of my anger, which is fine.
I don't know if I remember anger.
I don't know.
Edgy, a little edgier, I guess.
I don't really like some of what was going on back then, but
all right.
I've come out to a good place.
Yes, and you're happily married. You're happily married to a person.
Happily married, love my wife.
The Netherlands, from Friesland in the Netherlands. Yes. And hello back there. Hello, I know you're there.
Hello, Miranda, says Bradley. She's smiling and waving hello. She doesn't want to be on camera.
Well, Steve, thank you very much for
Thank you so much, Bradley, for sharing my silly stories.
Check in, and we'll keep in touch with me, I know, and we'll do this from time to time. If there's anything I can do to promote anything, let me know.
Same here, buddy.
All right. Take care. Steve Kilroy.
Thanks so much.
He's a drummer. Bye now.
Peace.
We're clear in 5 and 4.